Thank you, Andy and Gregory. I love it being in stereo for the bells. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Susan Francis, the assistant minister here at UCE, and our worship associates this morning are Allie Hunter and Olivia Baer. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community seeking truth in love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. If you are joining us online, there are many links in the comments section of the YouTube live stream, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and how to be added to our email newsletter list. This morning we have a few announcements. Please remember to wear your masks over your nose and mouth. Remember that wherever we are in the building, regardless of how small the group or who is presenting, that we are agreeing to wear our masks in order to be together in person. If you are staying for kinship time and taking a drink or getting a candy, please remember to put your mask right back on. We are reshaping our hospitality teams. If you didn't see my newsletter article on Friday in the newsletter, please do. It gives details that we are going to be condensing our hospitality teams into 4 dedicated teams. We'll have our virtual-only team, we'll have our greeters who are here in person, we will have our money counters who are here in person, and we will have a kitchen ministry who is here in person. As with all things happening in these pandemic times, we will keep evaluating how the new system is working and what from the old system we need to reincorporate. Everyone in the congregation is still invited to be on a hospitality team. So as the new team coordinators or myself reach out to you, please respond. We'll have 4 teams: greeters, kitchen ministry, money counters, and virtual only to make up our hospitality ministry. This coming Saturday, November 20th, is the Transgender Day of Remembrance. We will hold a vigil in honor of the memory of the transgender and gender nonconforming individuals who have been killed over this past year by acts of anti-transgender violence. Please join us on Saturday, November 20th at 5 p.m., either in person in room 5 or virtually via Zoom. The link is in the newsletter. Today, our Faith Formation Hour includes a storyteller workshop with Olivia Baer in room 3, a soul collage experience with Christine Peters in room 5, and a drum circle here in the sanctuary. There is childcare available in room 11. And now I invite those of you at home to prepare your chalices and set a place for yourself and your family as we join in beloved community. Today we are exploring the history of the physical land that UCE resides upon, this land that we are now the caretakers of. Our storyteller, Olivia Baer, will offer some of the early known history of this land for this morning's land acknowledgement.
The Chicagoland area is located on the ancestral tribes of Indigenous peoples, such as the Council of the Three Fires Confederacy, also known as the Anishinaabeg people. The Three Fires Confederacy is composed of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. Before European colonial exploitation, the tribes had thriving trade networks throughout the Great Lakes region, and the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac, Fox, and Kickapoo and Illinois nations, in addition to more than a dozen other tribes, used it as a space for gathering, for healing. 500 million years before they lived here, the land that is now called Illinois was covered by a shallow tropical ocean whose plant matter settled into the earth, forming today's sandstone and today's limestone. Over the course of the next several hundred millions of years, the ocean became a swamp whose towering trees died and compacted into coal, and glaciers from the north progressed southward, piling up ridges that form Chicago area's highest points today. Next to the mountains were the waters that used to cover the entire metropolitan area until draining around 2,500 years ago into a lake. A smooth curve of sandy beaches was fronted with low dunes and clay layered beneath soft sand that today now extends about a mile offshore. The following text is an excerpt by John N. Lowe, storyteller and member of the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi Indians. He details that there are many variations of the origin stories that explain how the peoples who call themselves the Potawatomi came to be on this land. Oral histories of the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and Ojibwe include references to a great flood, through which a cultural hero survives alongside other creatures of the world by clinging to a turtle, a log, or a canoe. In most versions, the back of the turtle had become the land, the hero settling upon it and teaching the native Anishinaabeg people all important things, including the building of birch bark canoes. From early in Potawatomi tradition, land rising out of water has been prevalent. The Potawatomi Nation's website states that it was at Niagara Falls that the Anishinaabeg disbanded into 3 distinct tribes. First were the eldest kinsmen, the Ojibwe, known as keepers of medicine and faith, entrusted with sacred scrolls and teachings, migrating to the north and west of Lake Superior. Next was the Odawa, the keepers of the trade, establishing villages to the north and south of Lake Superior, Michigan, and Huron. They were responsible for large hunting and trading expeditions that created not only intertribal, but later European alliances. Last to build a fire were the Potawatomi, known as the Keepers of the Fire, migrating south to the coast of Lake Michigan. Potawatomi are responsible for protecting and nurturing the Anishinaabeg Council fire, for it is at the root of their culture and defining to them as a people. Still today, they are called upon to rekindle the flames of their past, lighting the path to their future as Anishinaabeg. Humans have lived upon and shaped this environment for many, many years. But European settlers and our descendants have transformed the Chicago lakefront in ways that were previously unimaginable, harming the natural environment and violating agreements with the native people of this land in order to create profit. In the face of forced assimilation, erasure, and genocide, over 100,000 tribal members remain here in the state of Illinois. On October 2nd, 2021, a procession led by Native people with non-natives allies, marked the ground with a line of red sand going down Michigan Avenue downtown, tracing the original shoreline of Lake Michigan. This event was sponsored by Whose Lakefront, a public art project foregrounding the occupation of native land by marking the presence of unceded territory in the heart of Chicago's downtown. Their webpage states that in 1914, the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi Indians sued Chicago for the land along the lakefront. As co-signers of the 1833 Treaty of Chicago, they had been forced to give up their land in Illinois up to the shoreline of Lake Michigan. Since then, the city has created land beyond the shore, a lake fill, including Streeterville, Lincoln Park, and Grant Park, some of the most valuable property in Chicago. The Pokagon Band argued for the return of this unceded land or payment for its value. The case went to the U.S. Supreme Court where, predictably, the Potawatomi lost. Today, when you return to your now suburban and urban homes, think of the Potawatomi. Be grateful for your home and the land your home resides upon, the wildlife that lives around you, and think of the Potawatomi. Do not feel shame for having come upon this land unjustly, because shame has already done enough damage to this earth and to the people who live upon it. Allow yourself to feel wonder, recognizing the things that you do not know about this land or its original keepers. It is okay to be a seeker, a listener, and a learner. Native voices have been silenced and misinterpreted for so long, but their lives and cultures and stories continue strong. It is time that we open ourselves towards them with care and intent. It is time that we acknowledge their land, not for the sake of a pat on our backs before our services, but for the sake of education and action towards rightful justice and restoration. Today, the world is crying out for help. Our time is limited. Listening to Native peoples is not only overdue, but an urgent necessity in order to begin nurturing this land so that future generations might have the privilege of nurturing it too. Thank you.
Good morning. As Lizzie, Jean, Christine, Sally, Jordan, and Shirley with Rainbow Alliance light our chalice in honor of the upcoming Transgender Day of Remembrance, please join in reading the words, Call from the Past, from Tanya Marquez's Call from the Past, Present, Future. From the heights of the Andes, the jungle, and the desert, from the depth of the sea, from a time that was, from a time that stretches beyond our memory, we are called. Our histories stretch back to the first people, the first steps, the collision of worlds, to abrupt beginnings, all wanderers of this land. We have inherited the unfinished labor of our ancestors, of those that came before us. We are called to continue the work. And please rise in body or spirit and join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now please join in hymn 1067, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. If you are participating from home, please sing along. Those of you in the building, please enjoy the recording. Move your bodies and hum along or mouth the words.
Each Sunday, we hold space for the joys and sorrows of those gathered here, honoring the struggles and triumphs, the brokenness and wholeness that is woven into the human experience. If you have a joy or sorrow that you would like spoken aloud during the service, please feel free to write it in the Joys and Sorrows book at the back of the sanctuary, or you can submit a Joys and Sorrows request through the website. This morning, we don't have any joys or sorrows that have been submitted beforehand, and I am just checking the chat to see if there's anything else to include. And I do not see anything. So this morning, if you are here in person, have something on your heart or mind that you would find comfort in coming forward and lighting a candle, please do so. Allie will hand you the taper to light one of the candles in front. If you are online and have not yet done so and have something on your heart or mind you would like to share, please enter it into the chat. I invite you forward. This is a sacred space where we have patience and curiosity, and I don't know if you could see, but I couldn't find tapers this morning, and I thought the big tapers would work, and that was a challenge. So for everybody who came forward, whatever is on your heart and mind today, may the lighting of the candle, even in the challenge that it took to get lit, bring peace to your heart this morning. Please join me in an attitude of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come together today, located in many physical places, but all part of one gathered community. We hold in our hearts those mourning the death of loved ones, those grieving the loss of children and parents, siblings and friends, those who have recently celebrated Veterans Day and shared the memory of those who lost their lives in the service. We hold in our hearts those looking for a new job, looking for secure housing, and looking for consistent medical care. May our challenges be met with courage and the support of this community. Spirit of life, we come together today grateful for the new babies in our midst and for the love of family and friends. Grateful for when we celebrated Veterans Day that we were able to reach out to loved ones who served and came home. We come together today grateful for the abundance of care provided by this community, knowing that it is never enough, and knowing that we are trying to care for each other as best we can during this ongoing pandemic. We are grateful for the science that is providing more and more members of our society with vaccines, for the manufacturing that provides us with masks so we are able to gather together in person, and for the technology that provides us with ways of being together virtually. Spirit of life, we express our desire to expand our love and care beyond our gathered community with these words from the Call from the Present, from Tania Marquez' Call from the Past, Present, Future. The voices of our people call now. The world harbors their joys and their sorrows. We hear the cries of our people demanding justice. In that call, we recognize the voices of those who wander in the desert, the border crossers, the navigators, the justice seekers, the dreamers, and the hopeful. We weave our story to the story of our ancestors right here, right now. We are in the midst of responding to the call that comes from all corners of this land, from the south, the north, the east, and the west. We are called to sustain the work. Blessed be.
Keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. I'm gonna keep my heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open. Though these waves wanna pull, though they want me around, though the waves waves wanna push me around. I'm gonna keep my heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open till my faith brings me back to solid ground. Until my faith brings me back to solid ground. We gotta keep our heart. We gotta keep wide open. We gotta keep our hearts wide open. Though these waves wanna put us around. Though these waves wanna push us around. We gotta keep our heart. We gotta keep wide open till our faith brings us back to solid ground. Till our faith brings us back to solid ground. Say hi.
Hi.
As we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with Renaissance Social Services, whose mission is to create a Chicago without homelessness or inequities. They provide the opportunity for stability and wellness by supporting communities and the people who live within them with quality, affordable housing, behavioral health care, outreach, homeless prevention, compassionate support services, and a purposeful focus on racial equity. If you want to talk with someone about Renaissance Social Services, Jordan Struber is here today in an outrageous cat print. You can't miss it. And available to answer questions after the service. If you are joining us from home or in the building, you may text to give by texting the dollar amount and the word offering to 312-584-9160. You may also mail in a check, making sure to indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. You may also offer and give through our website. If you are in the building, please raise your hand if you have an offering, and an usher will walk by with a collection bowl or box. The ushers have pens and envelopes if you would like to identify your cash with your pledge or other giving. There are also envelopes by the Joys and Sorrows table for your use in the future. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
Ooh. A Stone Sat Still by Brendan Wenzel. A stone sat still with the water, grass, and dirt, and it was as it was, where it was in the world. And the stone was dark, and the stone was bright. And the stone was loud. And the stone was quiet. And it sat where it sat, with the water, grass, and dirt. And it was as it was, where it was in the world. And the stone was rough, and the stone was smooth, and the stone was green, red, purple, and blue. And the stone was a pebble, and the stone was a hill. And the stone was a feel, and the stone was a smell. And it sat where it sat, with the water, grass, and dirt. And it was as it was, where it was in the world. And the stone was the wild, and the stone was a home. And the stone was a kitchen, and the stone was a throne. And the stone was a marker, and a map, and a maze, a danger, a haven, a story, a stage. And the stone was a blink, and the stone was an age. And the stone was an island, and the stone was a wave. And the stone was a memory. And the stone was always. Have you ever known such a place? Where with water, grass, and dirt, a stone sits still in the world.
I am a hugger of trees, literally. You may have seen a picture or two of me in the newsletter hugging a tree across various parts of North America. And like the stone in our story, a stone sat still. A tree is part of a unique story for each person and creature who encounters it. And like a tree or a stone, this land, and today when I say this land, I mean this land that we now call Evanston, and specifically this land that UCE resides upon, 1330 Ridge Avenue. This land has been many things to many communities and has many stories spanning the centuries. By 1600, this land was used as hunting grounds by nomadic tribes who shared the Algonquin culture and language. At this time, there were over 15 million people and over 500 indigenous communities and nations across the North American continent. The existing roads, cultivated farmland, domesticated crops, and knowledge of edible plants and medicinal herbs were the foundation upon which white settlers were able to survive and the foundation upon which our current society was built. A century later, in 1700, a dozen small settled tribes comprising the Illinois Confederation, lived on this land. And by 1760, Potawatomi villages populated this area, connected by numerous paths, including the ones we now refer to as Ridge Avenue and Green Bay Road and Grosse Pointe Road. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz reminds us in her book, An Indigenous People's History of the United States, that when European settlers arrived in the area of the Great Lakes, there was already a thriving network of complicated economic and governance systems in place among the Council of the Three Fires, which includes the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe nations, and their neighbors, the 6 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, which includes the Cayuga, Onondaga, Seneca, Oneida, and Mohawk nations. From 1776, when the United States was formed, through 1818, when Illinois became a U.S. state, the Potawatomi people were living on the land we know as Evanston. From 1818 until their forced removal from the state of Illinois in 1833, the Potawatomi living on this land signed a series of treaties with the U.S. government that bit by bit removed tribal lands from their control. Often these treaties were negotiated under questionable circumstances, making the outcomes unfairly biased toward the U.S. government. In 1829, the Treaty of Prairie du Chien ceded the majority of the land within the borders of what we now call Evanston from the local Potawatomi community to the U.S. government, including the land that UCE now resides upon. After the 1829 treaty, this land became a commodity that was sold from private landholder to private landholder. The U.S. government sold the land to white settlers and gifted it to white soldiers in return for military service. 3 generations later, in 1981, the Unitarian Church of Evanston was founded by white settlers in the city of Evanston. And it would be another 3 generations before the congregants of the Unitarian Church of Evanston would purchase this land known as 1330 Ridge Avenue, moving into this building in 1958. And today, 3 more generations later, we gather during Native American History Month to honor the original caretakers of this land, the Algonquin communities, the Illinois Confederation, and the Potawatomi. We are living in a time of change, facilitated by the climate crisis and by the resurgence of historical truths about our country's founding and existence. Our country and our larger geopolitical world are addressing the disconnect between our written histories and our actual history. They are grappling with the disconnect between the colonial values of consumerism and property as a commodity and indigenous values of community and property as a life-giving partner. Yesterday was the final day of the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference. At the launch of the conference, Tali de Faria Marcos Turina of the Turina Indigenous Peoples of Brazil delivered a powerful opening statement from the Indigenous Peoples Caucus. She reminded us that the indigenous peoples across the globe drive critical climate solutions rooted in relationship with the living world. Cultivating this relationship with the living world and answering the call by Indigenous leaders when they seek action to prevent ongoing environmental crisis are ways that our community can be in relationship with Indigenous communities. Over the past 2 weeks of the UN Climate Change Conference, Indigenous Unitarian Universalists and relatives, the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth, and the Side with Love campaign have partnered together to provide support and worship for our UU community. They have called upon us to remember the 2016 General Assembly resolution that, among other items, encourage, quote, all Unitarians, Universalists, to enter a time of education, careful reflection, and healing during the years 2016 to 2021, and that special attention be given to the suffering, indignity, and loss that Native peoples have suffered since the early 1600s, end quote. How will our community make sure the Indigenous UUs among us feel comfortable on this land? Rebecca Dunbar Ortiz writes, "For the future to be realized, it will require extensive education and programs and the full support and active participation of the descendants of settlers, enslaved Africans, and colonized Mexicans, as well as immigrant populations." The next time you are walking on the grounds of this land, of UCE's grounds, I invite you to pause, to visualize your connection with the original caretakers of this land, the Algonquin communities, the Illawarra Confederation, and then the Potawatomi. And then to think about your present-day responsibilities for being a caretaker of this land. Because for our future to be realized, we must do this together.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? 'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? To be prepared. I know I'm scared. To be prepared. I know I'm scared. And I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? To be change is coming. I know. What do we need to imagine? 'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know broken nest there's hope. I know. From broken nest there's hope. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming.
I know.
What do we need to imagine? Change is coming.
I know.
What do we need to imagine?
Last week, Reverend Eileen announced our kinship time or return of fellowship right after the service. After the service, you're invited to remain in the sanctuary for 20 minutes to greet visitors, get to know new members, and catch up with friends. There are water and hard candies on the tables outside the kitchen doors. Please remember to keep your masks on except for taking a drink or popping in a candy. Each Sunday during our kinship time, we will have space for 3 program tables in the cafe area, and so you're invited to wander back through the cafe area. Today, you can talk with someone from Denominational Affairs or peruse the Rainbow Alliance Lending Library. The UCE Serendipity Auction opens right now. After the service, if you are joining us virtually, please stay on this same YouTube link, and there will be, you'll get to see the slides for the kickoff. And for those of you here, if you'll stay in your seat for 5 more minutes, and Kathy Diamant is going to come up after the service, and we'll have slides, and she'll talk you through a few things, and then you can head back to see more about the Serendipity Auction at the 3rd program table in the cafe area.
As members of the Rainbow Alliance extinguish our chalice, please join in reading The Call from the Future from Tanya Marquez's Call from the Past, Present, Future. The voices of those who will be call us, a reminder of who we need to be. In the weaving of our story to the web of life, we must remember that we must not cut the strings, for there are others coming after us, others with tender hearts and strong wills, with creative determination, those who will live in the house of tomorrow. Their vision escapes us, yet we are called to prepare the road, to leave behind possibility and foundations upon which they'll build a better tomorrow. We are called to create new opportunities.
May you feel connected to this land and to the life-sustaining gifts of food, shelter, and air that it freely gives. May you embrace the responsibility for caring for this land and the surrounding environment. And may you know that you are not alone, for we are a community knit together from many backgrounds and living out our values together for this land and each other. Blessed be. Kathy?
Push the slides, or do I just ask him to? Let's do it. So Adam, I'll just tell you when to move the slides up. So, we're so happy to see so many of you here for the kickoff of our hybrid serendipity auction. And so for those of you who are watching virtually, if you have any questions, put them in the chat for us to answer. Next slide. So bidding's now open. And maybe you've been bidding even while during the service. Shouldn't be doing that. It's open all week. If you have not had a chance yet, check out the catalog because there's some terrific offerings, and many have just been added in the past week. Next slide. Thank you to those who donate year after year. And we are thrilled to have several donations from members who have joined in the last 5 years. So check out the amazing paintings, photography, jewelry. There's lots of quilt and knitting items. Next slide. So you can scroll through the catalog. You can actually select an item category, such as food or services. And you can even flag these items that you want to keep an eye on. This year we have 11 in-person group events that are very creative and interesting, including some that are multi-generational and several outdoor tours. There are 9 virtual group events to help us get through this upcoming winter. And you may find it helpful to see all these group events by looking on the calendar page on the website. Next slide. So we are so grateful for the generous donations by many local businesses with a wide range of offerings. If you visit any of these businesses, please express our appreciation for their support. Next slide. The dessert box offering was a big hit last year, and we've added a new option to get 4 or 8-piece desserts. Orders need to be in by this Friday, and we want you to be aware that all buy it now options when you bid, like the dessert boxes, your credit card will be charged when you place that order. The other bids will not be charged until at the end of the auction. Next slide. So next Saturday, you can come to see the wonderful donations and socialize between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. This is also the time to pick up your dessert boxes. We'll have Nick, the balloon twister extraordinaire, to make balloon creations for you to take home. And then that evening, we will have a pre-party virtual socializing starting at 6:40 p.m., and then a virtual celebration party from 7 to 8 p.m. with Janelle Britton and John Siegel serving as our MCs. There's going to be some awesome entertainment live streaming from the sanctuary. And during the program, we're going to be highlighting some auction items with testimonials, and we'll pick the 5 raffle winners that night. Final slide. So all members and friends of the church should have received an email to register last week. So if you did not receive the email, I'd suggest you first look in your spam folder. And then if you have any questions, email us at auction@ucevanston.org. So again, today we'll be at the back of the table of the church at a table. If you have any questions about how to register or bid, we also have a lot of information about bidding on the auction website. So if you look there, look up in the right-hand corner, there's helpful information and bidding basics, and there may be answers to your questions. And if you have any donations to drop off today, just bring them to us at the table in the back, or they can be dropped off this week during office hours. And next Sunday, after church, you all get to pick up your auction wins. So now, let the bidding, bonding, and boodling begin.
Blessed be, go in peace. Please enjoy our kinship time, and Faith Formation Hour will start in 10 to 15 minutes. Check for you.